So you have a startup and you want to bring your service to ChatGPT. In this video, I'm going to help you step by step with how to do exactly that. Building the app itself is actually the easy part. The real work is figuring out what you should build in the first place. I'm going to break down the exact strategy that I use in my own project and also for my customers. By the end of this video, you will have a complete framework that you can apply to your own startup. Here is what we're going to cover. Pick your target prompt, mapping your prompt to your service, implement an API to support your service, which logic should go into the API and which logic should go into ChatGPT app. Construct a Fractal prompt so that you can build with Fractal. And the last step, the common mistake and how to avoid them. Let's get into it. Everything starts with research, and that research begins with understanding one simple truth. ChatGPT apps exist because ChatGPT is particularly bad at three things: know, do, and show. About know, ChatGPT has a training cutoff date. It does not know any live data. It does not know any private data. If the answer depends on information that changes frequently or the data that live inside of your system, ChatGPT cannot reliably answer it. Any prompt that depends on real-time availability, constantly updated metrics, or proprietary data set, all of that would fall in the no category. So an example would be, what is the weather today? ChatGPT doesn't know this information because it's live data that is not included in its training data. Second is do. ChatGPT is very good at planning, but it cannot take actions. It cannot book your travel, it cannot buy your grocery, it cannot incorporate your company. However, because apps can talk to the real world, any prompt that requires taking an action is a great candidate for a ChatGPT app. If someone says, incorporate my company for me, ChatGPT can explain every single step, but it cannot do the incorporation. That's an opportunity for your app. So, ChatGPT is text first. Sometimes text is enough, but sometimes it is not. If the information needs to be compared, visualized, or structured in a clear way, text isn't good enough. Table, charts, cards, side-by-side comparison all fall in the show category. For example, when someone asks to compare two IVF clinics, they don't want three separate paragraph of text. They want the data side by side so that they can see the difference instantly. Once you understand the know, do, and show framework, the strategy is very simple. Your job is to find prompts where ChatGPT struggles. Usually they're in one of these three areas. Those prompts are your opportunity. So let me show you a real example. One of my customers is a company called Baby Step IVF. They have a massive amount of live data around IVF clinics like success rate, live birth rates, data that is updated regularly from their sources. ChatGPT does not have access to this information, so Baby Step IVF target the no prompts. Here are the exact prompts that they focus on. 5 IVF clinics near me with a high birth rate. Which California clinics have the highest success rate for women under 35? Recommend the top 3 clinics in Texas based on live birth rate. Here's a do example. Another one of my customers is this company called Lexi's AI. Lexi helps founders incorporate their companies and handle things like converting from an LLC to a C Corp. ChatGPT usually knows a lot about incorporation. It can explain the process in details, it can list every single step, but it cannot do the incorporation itself. A ChatGPT app, however, can take actions in the real world, so that is what exactly Lexi focuses on. Here are the prompts that they target. Incorporate my company for me. Convert my company from an LLC to a C Corp. Can you tell the difference? ChatGPT can talk about incorporations, but only Lexi app can actually make it happen. So step 1 is all about research. Look at your service and ask yourself, where does ChatGPT fall short? Is there a no problem where you have data that ChatGPT doesn't have? Is it a do problem where you can take actions that ChatGPT cannot? Is it a show problem where visualization beats text? Find those prompts, write them down, and those are your target prompts. Alright, we did the hard part, we picked the prompts. Now we're going to the part that actually make your app work, mapping your prompt to your system. So this is what mapping actually means. A ChatGPT app is just a translation layer between the messy human prompt and your system. The goal of this step is to mapping out how information flows from the prompt to the app and to your system, and making sure that your system has everything you need so the app can connect with it. Let's use baby step IVF as an example. Here we have the prompt, which California clinics have the highest success rate for women under 35. We can see clinics is asking about clinics, so the tool that we have to have is 5 clinics. And then the parameter from this prompt is the state is California, they want a highest success rate, and they want women under 35. Based on these informations, we know that our API have to look somewhat like this. It has to be an endpoint from 5 clinics. It has to have a parameter for the state. It has to be able to sort by success rate, and it has to have a filter for women under 35. After that, this information is going to flow back into a UI that is embedded in ChatGPT. And in the UI, we want to display the clinic's name, the address, the success rate, phone, website, longitude, and latitude so that we can show the clinics on a map. So we also need to make sure that our API return at least that information. You are going to have to do this for all the prompts that you target. This kind of mapping helps you make sure that your API does not miss any use cases that you want to target. Once you've done the mapping, you need to actually expose your API. You can do this using whatever tool that you prefer, Cursor, a Replit, or an existing backend. The key thing here is making sure your API returns everything that the UI needs. For baby step IVF, that means returning not only the clinic names and success rate, but also the address, phone number, website, coordination in the map. You have to think through each of your target prompt and ask what data do you want to display and what data you want to be able to query. Make sure that your API returns all of it. If you already have an existing backend, you might just need to create a few endpoints or add some query parameters to your existing endpoint. But if you're building from scratch, focusing on the endpoints that support your target prompts first. So a question I get asked a lot, that is which logic should go into the API and which logic should go into the ChatGPT app. There's no really wrong answer, but this is my preferred way to structure it. I think all UI logic and chat logic should go into the ChatGPT, and everything else should go into the API. I like to think about ChatGPT app as the translator for your service. It translates natural languages into structured data and then returns the structured data to the UI. So based on that, this is what my preferred way of what should go into the ChatGPT app. ChatGPT app should handle parsing the user intent, extracting parameters, asking follow-up questions, and formatting the display. Here's what should go into your API: any kind of your business logic, any kind of data access and integrations, and any heavy computation. You want your ChatGPT app to be a thin layer that sits between the user and your system. If you put too much logic in the app, it becomes really hard to maintain and keep your system in sync with the app. This is very similar to how you structure a web app and a mobile app. You want the logic to be in the same place so that your mobile app and your web app do not go out of sync. In the previous step, we figure out what prompt we want to target and we map those prompts to your system. Now we're going to turn all of that together to build an app. So when you prompt Fractal, there's really only 3 questions you need to answer. When should ChatGPT use my app? How should the app handle the prompt? And how should the app display the result? Let's walk through each of these questions using baby step IVF as an example. Okay, when should ChatGPT use this app? This comes directly from the prompt research that we did earlier. The app should be able to answer questions like, find the best IVF clinic near me, which California clinics have the highest success rate for women under 35, recommend the top 3 clinics in Texas based on live birth rate. By listing it explicitly, Fractal will be able to make a better app for you. Question 2, how should the app handle the prompt? This is where you explain the API and any conversation logics that you want to include. For example, you can say ChatGPT should attempt to collect the mother's age from the user. If the user doesn't use this information, just assume that the user is under 35. When you specify something like this to Fractal, Fractal will make sure that your ChatGPT app will collect this information before it's called your endpoint. Then you can tell ChatGPT something like, ChatGPT should call the following endpoint to fetch clinics data. You can give Fractal the documentation of your endpoint so you don't have to manually explain what parameters your endpoint take and what the output of the endpoint looks like. The third question is, how should the app display the UI? This is where you describe what the user should see, and if you have a design, you can also upload the file on Fractal and Fractal can code it exactly like your design. For example, in the IVF clinics, I want it to display an inline map with the clinic's locations and then with the list of the clinics below it. Here's a complete Fractal prompt. I'm going to put that in the comments so you can copy and paste and try it on Fractal. Before you go off and build your app, let me share some of the common mistakes that I see people usually make. These can save you hours of implementation. Mistake number 1, not testing both dark mode and light mode. This is the one that get people all the time. Your app may look good in light mode, but ChatGPT users can use either dark mode and light mode. You'll be surprised at how many dark mode users there are. If you only test in one, you might have text that is invisible or colors that crashes, and the UI look broken for half your users. So make sure that you test both dark mode and light mode before you ship. Mistake number 2 is the app looks good, but it doesn't work for your target prompts. This is the number one mistake that I see with people who do not use Fractal. They think of ChatGPT apps as just a wrapper for their API, rather than thinking about it as a chat-first experience. So even though the UI looks great, when you actually type in one of your target prompts, ChatGPT doesn't use your app, or it uses your app in the way that you do not expect it. So the UI looks great, but when you actually type in one of your target prompt, your app do not get used at all. And that means that your app would not be able to get discovered. It should not happen if you use Fractal, but if it does, you can go back to Fractal and tell it, improve the tool so that ChatGPT would work for this prompt, and then list your exact prompt. For example, improve the tool so ChatGPT would work for this prompt. Find the best IVF clinics near me with the highest birth rate. Fractal will automatically adjust the app configuration so that ChatGPT recognize when to use your app. Fractal would adjust the app configuration so ChatGPT recognize when to use your app. Mistake number 3, putting too much logic in the app. ChatGPT apps are meant to provide instant response, not creating a long-running task. For example, if your apps require crawling other website, you should build the crawler separately and then put the data into the database. The ChatGPT app should just access the database instead of kicking off a long-running task. Any long-running task can be timed out, and once your app timed out, ChatGPT will categorize it as not working as expected, and your app may not get approved, or worse, it get approved, but it never gets used by ChatGPT because it's always timed out. So again, keep the app simple, keep it focused on the translation and display aspect for the app, and let your API do the heavy lifting. So that is the complete process. If you follow this step, I'm sure you'll be very successful. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And if you build something cool using this framework, I would love to see it. See you in the next one.